Yes.
Okay, good. So hi, welcome to our introductory webinar for Human Rights Educators USA. My name is Kirby Edmonds. I'm the co-chair of the HRE USA Steering Committee and the project leader. I'm located here in Ithaca, New York. Founded in 2011, Human Rights Educators USA is a growing network dedicated to building a culture of human rights by providing an innovative forum for HRE practitioners and supporters to learn, network, and exchange professional expertise and better serve our growing human rights education community. Our mission is to promote human dignity, justice, and peace by cultivating an expansive, vibrant base of support for human rights education, HRE, within the United States, to maximize our members' efforts to integrate international human rights standards into formal and non-formal educational settings, to promote national and regional policies that support human rights education, to advocate for the inclusion of human rights education in national and state education standards, curricula, and pedagogy, to develop resources and training for educators, to contribute to global research and scholarship on human rights education, to empower educators and learners, and to participate in global networks and forums to share best practices. For us, human rights education is education about, for, and through human rights that's helping everyone develop the knowledge, skills, and values to exercise and protect human rights for everyone. Our particular focus has been getting human rights education embedded in the curricula of U.S. public schools. We have a fiscal sponsor located in Ithaca, New York, called the Center for Transformative Action, and we're governed by a steering committee of 18, 12 of whom are put forward by the executive committee as a slate, and 6 of whom are elected by the membership. And now I'll turn the discussion over to our other co-chair, Marissa Gutierrez-Vicario. You're on, Marissa.
Wonderful. Hi, hello everyone. My name is Marissa. Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good evening, or good day, good evening. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York, and my name is Marissa, and I'm going to briefly speak about our regional outreach efforts and explain a few ways that you all on the call can become involved in our growing national network of human rights educators. It's something I find really, really exciting as we're building this movement together. So first off, we have what are called action committees. So these are opportunities to work with HRE USA to make more tangible change in our growing network of human rights educators. And members like yourself can easily become part of this movement by joining one or more, if you want to, of the following committees, which I'll briefly outline. So we have a few, and I'll review this. So first we have what is called CAPAC, or the Collaborative Action Policy and Advocacy Committee. So this is a committee that develops and reviews and undertakes collaborative action projects in conjunction with HRE USA partner organizations. And Rosemary, who will be introduced later, will explain a little bit more about what CAPAC does and what that means and what partners mean. So some of the projects include submitting shadow reports on human rights education to the US, in the US, about the US, to the United Nations, developing a human rights education curriculum guide, and actively advocating for US states to integrate human rights education into education standards, as Kirby had mentioned. Now we have what is called the Membership Committee. So this is a committee that develops ongoing strategies to engage and grow the movement of HRE USA members, both individuals and organizational members that we have a part of the network. So part of this work includes creating resources like this very webinar and finding different ways to onboard members across the country. Because as you can tell, even here we have folks from across the US, and figuring out ways that, that we can work together to build this. We also have what is the Development Committee. So like any movement, as you can imagine, we need the funding to keep this work sustainable. This committee develops and carries out the fundraising goals of HRE USA. So that might mean establishing relationships with prospective donors, or also identifying and submitting grants in the human rights education field. One that is especially important to me, given that I work with young people and children in my own work, is the Convention on the Rights of the Child Working Group. So as many of you know, the US is the only country in the world to not have ratified this treaty, which is the Convention on the Rights of the Child, or the CRC. And this group is especially important to working to galvanize support on the long-term goal of the US ratification of the CRC, but also in the meantime, also increasing awareness of the CRC at the state, local, and district school levels. So that's part of the work that we do, is looking at the national and more larger scale, but also what it means. What does HRE look like on the local level? And we also have what are considered the Ed O'Brien Award and Flowers Fund Awards. And I know Chrissy's going to talk a little bit about this more in depth, but these committees are ways that HRE USA supports innovative grassroots efforts for human rights change, and ways that local organizations can get funding to continue their work. So next, I'm super excited about this. I love our regional network and our regional representatives. So at the heart of this organization are regional reps, and these are super important folks that are part of the network of human rights educators across the country. And right now we currently have 24 regional reps in 21 different regions across the United States. And these individuals are the leaders of the HRE USA on the ground and in the regional chapter. They do a multitude of different things based on their community. So they coordinate with human rights, they coordinate human rights education programs, they organize conferences, they workshops, gatherings with partners to support human rights education in their own communities. They represent HRE USA at the local grassroots level, and they work in partnership with what we call the regional coordinator of HRE USA. And there are just so many exciting opportunities for regional reps to become involved. I first became involved with HRE USA as a regional rep in the New York area, and I never stopped. I never stopped participating. So it's an open window for folks to become involved. We also, which is we're really proud of, HRE USA provides modest financial support to support grassroots rep efforts if regional reps need it. So for instance, this funding might be used to help subsidize a local human rights education event in your own community. So if you're interested, as a follow-up to this call, we'll be providing more information on how you can become involved as a regional rep. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn over to my colleagues, Christy and Paige.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Again, I'm Paige Hersey. I have been part of HRE USA since pretty much the beginning, 2011. I am on the faculty in teacher education at Touro University of California in Vallejo, California, which is northeast of San Francisco. I'm a member of the steering committee and also the membership committee, and contribute to additional projects as needed and as I have time. I want to share about some opportunities to keep up with the work of HRE USA and some ways to get involved with learning and the projects that we have going on. And then Christy, I'll turn it over to Christy for more about, excuse me, ongoing projects and getting involved. So one of the first ways that you will be introduced to what's going on with HRE USA is through our newsletter. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see just a little sample of one of the, oops, that's not the newsletter. Yes, on the left-hand side is a newsletter, updates and news. This comes out monthly. It highlights the latest news, action alerts, publications, events, partner announcements, and other exciting related events in human rights education in the US. If you have something you'd like to share in the newsletter, you can always email Emily at info@hreusa.org to try and contribute. This newsletter comes out via email, but you can also access the archives of the newsletter on the website. So if there was something that came to your email and you want to look back for it, you can always find past issues of the newsletter on our HRE USA website. On the right-hand side of this slide is an example of the Human Rights Here and Now Bulletin. This was one that came out, I think, last fall. The Human Rights Here and Now, every child has a right to family, even at the border. So these are periodic publications that give background information and educational resources, lesson plan ideas, links to contemporary human rights issues. They're great for teachers and anyone working in human rights education. Again, like I mentioned, there are links to a range of resources and links to some of our partner organizations, resources such as Teaching Tolerance, Amnesty International, links to news and articles on a range of sources. And again, they're very current, topical issues that come out as new matters or issues are coming up in human rights education. Some of the past issues that we've had are this one that you can see. Then there was one specifically about the Convention on the Rights of the Child. There was one on teaching about DACA. There was one on Black Lives Matter, one from the 2016 election that we might need to give a little update this year. So these are also found on the archived on the website. So you can always find the past Human Rights Here and Now bulletins on the website. And at the end of when Christy and I get finished sharing a little bit with you, I'm going to show the website just to give you a little orientation to how to navigate to some of these resources. The next thing I'd like to point out is the Human Rights Education Curriculum Integration Guide. This came out of some work of KPAC, the Marissa, I'm not going to be able to give the full name of it, but anyway, the action committee that Marissa mentioned earlier did some work in conjunction with a couple of our members in New Jersey, and this serves as a model for how to integrate human rights education with state standards and frameworks, social studies frameworks. While this may not be specific to everyone's frameworks and standards, it's an example of how integration can be done in classrooms at all levels, and you could adapt the ideas to your own state. Another resource that might be useful is our annual report. Our newest annual report for 2019 will be coming out soon this spring, but it's just a way to get kind of a snapshot of the work we've been doing in the previous year, our partnerships, and you can find out more about financial information in the annual report. Another place we'd like to point out to you is our HRE USA online shop. And again, I'll show that to you in just a few minutes when we actually go to the website. We have our HRE USA UDHR posters, which are very popular. There are 3 different designs. And you can also order your human rights booklets like the UDHR, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and CEDAW are the ones that we have available right now. And as a member, remember that you get a resource pack with a free set of 10 booklets and a poster. So if you haven't taken advantage of that yet, you can. You can also order additional materials, additional posters and booklets if you like to use them for workshops or classes. Next is the resource library. So the resource library on our website is a curated collection of HRE materials and resources. You can search there by topic or by a specific subject area, such as math or social studies. If I were teaching a unit on gender, for example, I could look specifically for resources at my grade level on the topic that I'm teaching. And again, I'll show you the resource library in just a few minutes. The last thing I'd like to share with you is about our HRE USA discussion forum. This is a forum where members can participate either via email or through the LinkedIn group to engage with other members, have conversations on current topics related to human rights education, and share any information that you'd like to share with the membership. So I'm going to pause there and turn it over to Christy and let her talk a little bit about taking action.
Sounds great. Thank you, Paige. I'm Christy Rodelius Palmer, and I'm based in the Midwest in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm currently the Human Rights Educators USA's treasurer and serve on a variety of different committees, from the Development and Membership Committee to a number of the Take Action committees that I'll talk to you about now. We're really interested in engaging you in different ways to both to meet the needs of our membership, as well as to kind of try and build this movement. So I'll talk to you a bit deeper into the action committee opportunities, regional chapter, and special projects work that we have going on. In terms of the policy and advocacy arm of our work, human rights education is kind of focused on both national and state education needs. So we've really looked at advocating for the inclusion of human rights education into national and state education policies, standards, curriculum, and pedagogy. And to this end, KPAC, our Collaborative Action Policy and Advocacy Committee, works on a variety of initiatives. It has succeeded in working with a number of states, including California, Colorado, Massachusetts, and South Carolina, to provide feedback on effective language for infusing human rights education into policies and standards. In addition, Human Rights Education USA, Educators USA also monitors the US compliance with its human rights treaty obligations, and in particular treaties which call on state parties to educate their communities on the fundamental principles of human rights. HRE USA members have worked on special shadow reports to the UN Human Rights Council as part of the Universal Periodic Review process of the United States. And KPAC members also have, is not only one avenue for advocating and educating on policy change, because we create some special working groups, for example. And we have currently a special working group on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And this campaign, we're calling it our Every Child, Every Right campaign. And this is focused on the 30th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have, I guess to that end, we've been, some of the campaign initiatives have been working even with our Human Rights Watch Student Task Force out in the Los Angeles area. And they've recently passed a resolution with the Culver City Council on in support of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. They've also were honored with our, I guess, special award to honor a youth activist organization that is really working on behalf of children's rights. We have kind of listed on our website a number of the resolutions that other cities have passed in support of this international treaty, and are supporting UNICEF as well, because just 2 weeks ago, Minneapolis became the very first city to be a UNICEF child-friendly city with an MOU, and are really working to kind of be including children's rights as a huge framework for a lot of the outreach work. So that's one opportunity to get involved. A couple of the other projects that you see on the screen here is, one is our Human Rights and National Security Toolkit, and another our Human Rights Friendly Schools Initiative. We've been really happy to partner with one of our organizational members, Amnesty International, around both of those two initiatives. Amnesty has created this Human Rights Friendly Schools project, and Ithaca, New York has really been working with the Dorothy Cotton Institute to implement that project. And so other schools may be interested in following up and thinking about how they can really do a more school-wide approach. Or we have the Human Rights and National Security Toolkit, which is really focusing on post 9/11 issues around integrating issues, looking at I guess discrimination in schools, surveillance, what's happening regarding torture, and how are students able to take action and respond to issues that really are affecting them in terms of their own security as well. Then we have one project that's on the screen that I'll just mention briefly, which was our poster contest that we undertook around the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 70th anniversary. And that was a national poster contest. That was kind of an idea of a couple of partners who said, hey, we should really be doing something. And actually the Children's Rights Campaign really came out of regional representatives' interest in trying to do something around the 30th anniversary of the Children's Treaty. And then we go to our special awards. The Ed O'Brien Award and the Nancy Flowers Fund are two initiatives that really are honoring some of our distinguished founders. Ed O'Brien unfortunately passed away in 2015, and in his honor, we created this special award that is recognizing both individuals and organizations that have done remarkable work in terms of their leadership in human rights education. You can definitely see more details on some of those awardees on our website. And I know one of them is on this call, the from Voice of Witness education program out in California. But those projects that we try and highlight and those individuals, we really think they're just amazing role models and give us creative ideas for kind of thinking about what we can do also in our own local context. And the Flowers Fund is also, I think, it aligns with that same notion around how do we innovate and mentor kind of emerging leaders in the human rights education field. So with this Flowers Fund, we award between $500 and I think maximum $1,000 to a number of individuals or organizations that have creative project ideas. And so this is just a little bit of seed money to try and help fuel that flame or feed the fire to try and encourage new work to be done in this area. And I think lastly, but not the least, is our regional representative group that is really, I think, essential to our projects. And Marissa had mentioned them as well earlier in this component of engagement and getting involved. So you can look at your state representatives and think also about your regional representatives, so that ways that we can kind of collaborate together and learn from best practices. I think Paige had mentioned our blog, as well as our LinkedIn site, where we can share effective practices coming out of those regional structures. But we really are interested in having others participate and think about ways that you may be getting involved in some of those ideas that you're most interested in. And I think now we'll hear from from Rosemary, or maybe, I guess, Paige, are we going to jump into the website first?
How about if we let Rosemary can share a little bit about partnerships, and then I'll take us to the website last before we open it up for questions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, then I will attempt to face my camera here. I'm Rosemary Blanchard, and I am the co-vice chair of HRE USA. I always sort of get it backwards one way or the other. And I'm also the chair of the Human Rights Education Community within the National Council for the Social Studies. So I'm very interested in sharing with you and inviting you to participate in not only the partnerships we already have, but helping us to identify even more partners that might be able to expand what all of us are able to do. The idea of a true partnership is that everybody gets a little more done and feels a little more supported because the others are there. And that's certainly how HRE USA has worked with the organization I'm most involved with beyond HRE USA, which is National Council for the Social Studies Human Rights Education Community. Now, the formation of our community, which took place, we petitioned in the NCSS annual conference in 2012 and were approved by spring of 2013. But that was not the first time that human rights education matters were addressed in significant ways within the National Council for the Social Studies. The problem, in the absence of a community and a connection from that community to other partners outside, was that with the transitions of individuals, the whole presence could sort of disappear. And people would say, oh yeah, I recall they did something about that once, didn't they? Without an institutionalized presence within NCSS, it was hard to get the continuity of involvement that's necessary in order to demonstrate that, frankly, if human rights education isn't a part of what's going on, then it isn't competent social studies. Now, I'd say everybody in NCSS knew that. Why do I say they knew that? Because the House of Delegates unanimously approved the request of our commission that NCSS adopt such a policy. And when the board of directors then turned to the HRE community and said, will you help us draft it? They then unanimously approved the draft that the HRE community developed, but our draft was of the quality it was because, thanks to HRE USA, we were able to tap into expertise and researchers and university level writers and experienced human rights educators and advocates that we could never have tapped into just on our own within NCSS. So this was really an alliance made in heaven, I would say, because NCSS was able to make a position statement on human rights education that we have already seen within HRE USA is a powerful entree into the planning of social studies standards and curricula in the state education systems all over the country. Instead of just saying, I'm an advocate who thinks it's a good idea, we can say, look, the premier social studies professional organization in the country says that human rights education has to be there if it's going to be comprehensive social studies. So that's the kind of alliance we've been able to have with NCSS. Now with the U.S. Human Rights Network, another of our partners, we've been able to connect with human rights activists across the country that are dealing with human rights issues at the community level and are also representing human rights advocates in the Universal Periodic Review process of the United Nations that looks at the United States human rights record. And again, no one part of us could do this all by ourselves, but in an alliance, we can contribute what we know and they can take it to places we can't go. Same thing with the University and College Consortium for Human Rights Education. NCSS is a bit of a gatekeeper on the standards, not only for social studies, but for the preparation of social studies teachers. And the UCC HRE and HRE USA and our human rights education community within NCSS were able to influence the process so that competence in human rights and human rights education is recognized as a necessary competence for social studies educators by NCSS. That's nice, but how do you get it carried out? Well, we turn to our University and College Consortium because they are in the environment where social studies educators are being prepared at the college level. And so we ask them to help us integrate human rights education competencies into the preparation.
You're muted.
Yeah, lost audio.
Probably the whole thing was wandering around itself. When did you lose me?
Just 10 seconds ago.
Okay, so I'd already finished how UCC HRE is going to help us with the work of making sure that educators, the teachers in the schools, especially social studies teachers, are prepared to teach human rights education and to teach it in a human rights friendly way. And the last year, the Global Coalition for Human Rights Education, that's our connection with the whole international network of human rights educators. We're coming up, I think, our 10th year. Was that telling me I've run my time? If not, we're coming up on the 10th year of the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights Education and Training, and the decade of human rights education and training. Now, you don't hear a lot about it in the United States because we don't tend to talk about human rights as something we're doing domestically here in the United States. And when we talk about other countries, we usually talk about how we ought to tell them what to do. Whereas we often should be looking at what they're already doing that we may not be doing to make human rights something that is a bedrock civic understanding among the people. So through the HRE 2020 Global Coalition for Human Rights Education, we're able to send out the things that we're doing, but also to learn what other partners are doing and how they are integrating the work of human rights educators and the ambitions of our human rights friendly children, who, if you haven't noticed, seem to get it better than most adults. So that's where the partnerships become, excuse me, become a powerful resource. And HRE USA is a good way to network with other partners and what we try to do within HRE USA is to draw from all these partners so that we can put in a place you can access fairly easily content and ideas and activities that are going on around the country and around the world that are affecting human rights education and that can affect your own practice. And hopefully you will also contribute into our resources so that we can then share out with people like the Human Rights Network and the Global Coalition on Human Rights Education, the things we're doing here, because we're doing a lot more than we sometimes let anybody know. So that's basically what I have to share for now, but this is an exciting place to be. And it's
Thank
not
you,
a lonely
Rosemary.
place either.
Thanks, Rosemary. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides for just a moment before we open up for questions and just take you briefly to the HRE USA website. Just a moment. If you have any questions, if you've been thinking of any questions while we were sharing, feel free to jot them down now while you're thinking about it.
Now you are taking us. I wish I understood Zoom better. Okay, here we are.
Okay, so here we are. Can everybody see the website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So this is the homepage of the website. You know, Emily's done a great job of having current things that are happening cycle through, kind of a slideshow on the homepage. But just a couple things I wanted to point out that Christy mentioned and I mentioned. Looking here at publications, this is where you can find, like I mentioned, the current copy of the newsletter, as well as all the archived newsletters, the annual report that I mentioned, 2019 coming soon, the Human Rights Here and Now bulletins, and that Human Rights Education Curriculum Integration Guide. Under resources, you'll find the HRE library. So I'm going to take us there for just a moment. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where you can browse by specific topics. So if you are teaching a unit on a specific topic and we're looking for related resources, or if you weren't sure what topic you wanted to teach about but knew that you wanted human rights integrated into a specific subject area, you can browse by subject. Each of the resources is organized really clearly by there's background information about a topic. There's a human rights lens section, so looking at a specific topic through the eyes of human rights. Lesson plan ideas are clearly labeled there, ideas for taking action, and then a number of books and film resources as well. So take some time to browse around there in the library when you have a chance, or if you're looking for something specific. This is also where you can get to the HRE USA discussion forum. This link here on the website takes you to the LinkedIn, but we're also going to send out information after the call to make sure you know how to subscribe to the forum if you would like it to come to your email. And then the last thing I want to point out is the shop, right? You can't miss the gift shop. This is where you can order the human rights booklets. Right now we have these 3 available. And you can also order posters. And remember that as an HRE USA member, if you haven't gotten your welcome packet with 10 free booklets and 1 poster, we'll provide information to let you know how to reach out so that you can get those mailed to you. So that was just a quick little browsing through the website. I encourage you to spend some time there and just kind of see what's there.